Hello! Happy Veterans Day to all those who've served throughout the U.S. Thank you so much for all your service. To those not in the U.S., a good and solemn Armistice Day in memory of the end of World War I, which was just over 200 years ago. On a lighter note, happy Singles Day to all of you people planning on spending time purchasing stuff online rather than hanging out with your spouses or significant others or whomever. And to all of you watching and listening right now, welcome to the Game Audio Hour, a weekly podcast where we discuss all things game audio. We're weekly, right? Yeah? Yeah, we're weekly.
More or less.
From creative ideas to the latest techniques, project experiences to audio secrets, here is where you'll find in-depth coverage and opinions related to game audio. Alex, hey, it's been a while.
It has been an eternity. It's so wonderful to be back to see you guys again back here in the Game Audio Hour seat representing the rest of the entire globe.
Really glad to see you again.
It's been a long time. I'm looking forward to catching you guys up on everything that's happened, and what a privilege it is to be here again.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for being back on the show. Let's keep on going around to Mike. How are you doing?
I'm doing just spiffily. That's an adverb. Things are well. It's that period to experience every season at once in LA. Morning, winter, noon. It's summer, it's fall, and we're back to winter again. So it's a time for variety.
Oh yeah. It's not a bad time that. It's been... weather in SoCal is a strange thing, but you know all about that, Chase, right?
Yes, I do. It is nice and sunny, as you can see through, or maybe not. But there's some light radiating through in the studio right now. I haven't stepped outside today yet, but...
It's actually about minus 2 or minus 3 here right now.
Woo.
Oh, sorry. That's Celsius. So what's that in Fahrenheit? 4,700 and something. Let me just
30 or 28 or so.
Let's see. That is. What's the freezing?
Right? 30 or 31.
What's the freezing point of water in?
32 degrees Fahrenheit. It makes sense, I promise. Sort of.
Okay. This is excellent. Game audio conversation already. We're off to a great start.
Yeah. How to make ice sound effects with negative temperatures.
Yeah, precisely 28.4 degrees Fahrenheit. There you go.
28.4. Yeah, I misestimated there. But hey, it's game audio. It's all sorts of stuff happen here. Everything is important. Everything is ripe for the picking when it comes to making cool stuff happen in game audio. But sometimes there's more than just the audio. Last week, we actually touched a little bit on this idea of social media and how we actually use that. So I was thinking we would just go right into that. Because social media is hard. Social media is a really difficult thing. I feel like I've been living in a social media world for more than a decade now. My Twitter actually says that I joined in January 2009. But I honestly don't know if I'm really using it that effectively. Do you guys remember when you actually started using social media personally and also professionally?
There was a social media service in the 90s, predating Friendster, called 6degrees.com, and was almost like just abstracting away the idea of social network content. Literally set up an account, which like temporary social media sites, but there would be nothing on your account other than connections to other people. I don't even remember if there was like blurb or text slogans to associate. But people just got a kick out of making connections to their friends on 6degrees.com until the entire thing was ruined by people who decided they wanted to friend the whole network, and were just luminous friends that term may not have been used at the time. They connected just as many people as they could, and then invariably one of these kind of overly enthusiastic connectors connect to you and your social network by proxy of this person's millions and millions of people. So quickly collapsed. But that's when I started using social media.
Wow. Yeah, I vaguely remember that, although I never actually used it. I wasn't really savvy to any sort of social media in the 90s. Was it the same for you, Alex or Chase?
I remember. When was MySpace?
That was 2005, 2006.
Okay, so that was much later then. No, 90s was. I think the very first social media network that I joined because I moved to Japan in the year in 1999, and 16 years later I left, which is pretty amazing. Last time. It seems there's a ton of echo on everybody except for you, according to Bop Till You Flop on YouTube.
Oh, really? Oh no. Oh, does that help at all? This?
Hello.
Oh,
Check
test.
1, 2.
I'm sorry about that. I think I know what happened, and now it should all be fixed.
Hello. Is that better?
Test.
The non-echoey version of me.
We'll find out shortly. Anyway, when I first moved to Japan, it was there was a social media network that started there called Mixi, MIXI, which was a very typically sort of Japan-only kind of thing. That predated Facebook and Twitter, and that was my first social media network. But I think similar to what Mike said, in those days, it was all very new, the whole idea of social media and the idea of content and promoting content was very new. It was just basically a way to sort of form groups of friends that you could communicate with each other, kind of like the original intent behind Twitter.
Interesting. Yeah, for me, MySpace was professionally, I guess, the way I was thinking of using it. And I joined Twitter back in 2007. But when I was trying to be a hip hop producer, that I was using MySpace, which is still up to this day because I actually accessed it. Well, I didn't sign in, but I went to the page 2 days ago, and all my old stuff is on there, and it doesn't play at all because who was ever running that site, yikes, I don't know what's going on. But regardless, that's when I started using social media in that regard, in terms of professionally from there. But in 2007, I joined Twitter, and I remember a succinct video saying, like, you got to follow everybody that has it, and then you can just do whatever you want and post, and then everybody will normally see it. And then that was terrible. And then I was off of the platform for about 5 years, and then I decided to come back, and then that's when I had changed my name from being a hip-hop producer to just using my full name, and I haven't been using it professionally since then. Curating and seeing what I like from followed all those people I had no idea it was like wall scraper architects and bassoonists for doing different things, and magazine journalists from everywhere else. I don't know. It was just a hot mess. But yeah, then I was like, oh, I can curate my own news. Okay, I like you, Twitter. I like you. And I think it's interesting because not everybody kind of understands it from the people that I've kind of come across, but I think it's like the best. It's the only social media I can be on and off without being sucked into the void.
Yeah, for sure. I think that as far as game audio goes, I mean, as far as the game industry goes, Twitter really is the sort of the de facto standard. And the amount of value that I've got professionally through Twitter is pretty remarkable, actually, compared to any other, LinkedIn or Facebook or any other of the social media channels. Really, for the game industry, Twitter is such a useful tool. I think that in my case, like Chase as well, like when I first started, I started in 2010, and it was kind of a case of like, oh, here's this, all right, this seems a bit strange, but whatever, just like follow all these people and stuff like that. And then the feed turns into literally a stream of just stuff. It's like, well, I'm really not paying attention to any of this. I realized that a really, really good way to use it as a professional is to only follow people that you've met personally. And the benefit of doing that is that when you are actually going through your feed, it's all extremely relevant stuff because it's all people that you've met personally. And if you're using it with a professional intent in mind, then it's all going to be sort of industry professionals that you've actually met, that you're interested to follow and you're interested in what they have to say. And then I found that if you do it that way, like if you go to like a convention like GDC or Develop or any other of these sort of game industry conventions, if you go there and you meet somebody interesting and you follow them on Twitter and they follow you back, it's a really excellent way to sort of keep a light connection going with somebody over a long period of time, so that rather than, hey, yeah, you know what it's like when you go to an event and you meet somebody really fascinating and you're really enjoying that moment of getting to know somebody and sort of, fostering this sort of seed of a new relationship. And then when you say goodbye, it's like, yeah, let's keep in touch. It's going to be great. We'll keep in touch. But the reality is, of course, you don't keep in touch. You don't just write this email every month saying, hey, Vince, how are you? How's it going? If nobody does that. I mean, no, it'd be nice.
So sad, yeah.
I mean, it'd be nice if people did that, but it's just that it's the reality is you just don't have the time to sort of be writing these kinds of messages to people all the time. Whereas something like Twitter, especially if you're connected with somebody else because you've met them at a convention or something like that, it's a really great way to sort of have this light connection so that they'll always be kind of reminded that you exist. And then the next year comes around or some kind of business opportunity comes around and then they might remember, oh, yeah, there was that guy that I met. I follow him on Twitter. And actually for the company that I run now, I'd say maybe a little bit more than half of our business opportunities come via Twitter, which is amazing. And it's fantastic.
It's great.
That sounds great. Although I will say I'm a little surprised that for me, there is actually a tier of people whom I meet where I do, in fact, have a reminder basically saying every month, email these people and tell them what's up, see what's going on with them, and just keep in touch that way. Because as expansive and as powerful as Twitter is, not everyone is on Twitter. And the whole service has gone up and down over the last few years for various reasons.
Now that you've said that, Vince, I'm kind of curious why I'm not on that list of people that you email every month there, Vince. Maybe I'm not important enough? Is that what you're saying?
Well, no, it's the fact that actually I have you on many more intimate services. So let's say Skype, not everyone is on Skype. Random people that you meet at Game SoundCon or GDC are not on your Skype. You're on my Skype. You're on more personal. I can say, hey, what's up? And you're not going to balk at me being like, who is this dude?
Right.
I mean, that's the thing.
We'll go with that.
Vince writes to me every month, so I don't know why he's not. And Vince writes to you, right? So it's a little awkward. For those of you using Twitter, I have two suggestions. You can take an approach that Alex outlined, where you just follow the people who you actually care about. But a slightly broader approach is if you make use of Twitter lists. You can create a list of friends and actual clients and people who I might want to work for. Yeah. And then if you use a client like TweetDeck, it's actually very handy for separating views of these lists.
Absolutely.
And away from each other. So if you just want to casually look at your friends' tweets, you've got one column here. And if you want to look at your business contacts, you've got another, depending on your mood or frame of mind. TweetDeck will also let you turn off retweets, which I regard as absolutely essential for being able to stand Twitter. Because if you look at retweets, your entire timeline becomes, we've all got a couple of friends who just retweet everything, and then that's all you see. So being able to filter out that is really important. I've never gotten that to work on the Twitter website or the native client on the Mac. So it seems to be something that they just don't implement, but TweetDeck does. So that's a strong suggestion for those Twitterizing.
Yeah, lists are absolutely invaluable. And I'm glad that they still exist, because I heard a rumor a few years ago that Twitter was slowly sort of depreciating them, slowly downgrading their relevance, because they used to be very easily accessible from twitter.com. then it sort of got pushed into the background. You had to go to your profile, and then you had to go to like, it was like in your profile, and then as well as in some drop-down menu, there was like a lists thing that you go to there, and then you can access your lists. Now, fortunately on twitter.com, lists have been sort of brought up again, but they're extremely, extremely valuable. I think especially if you want to follow somebody, but you want to follow what somebody is saying, but you actually don't want to follow them. For example, like software vendors, that you want updates for, like software and stuff like that. That's really, really handy. Like, I don't really need to see, everything that Plugin Alliance has to say, for example, all the time. But I am interested to sort of have a passing following of what's going on. So that's a great example of something that you can put in a list, because when you don't have to follow them, but you can keep up to date on what's going on. You're going to say something to Chase on this?
Yeah, I was going to actually give a double plus on that one for a TweetDeck. The only thing is, I don't think it's for phones. I just think you're only going to be able to be as powerful on the computer. But with that in regard, I did want to actually hop into like the etiquette what you were talking about, Alex, which is if you meet someone in person, then you can follow them. But what I've been experiencing lately is on Facebook is that like people have never met me, then they work in game audio and they'll add me on Facebook. And so I thought there was a rule, as maybe this rule is broken because we're going into 2020. But if you met someone and you're really comfortable with them, then you get the second, introduction of social media with Facebook. It was like, okay, we're buddies. We've definitely hung out. But if I've never met you before and you want to be my friend, I'm like, is this what do you guys think is the etiquette of that? Is it changing? Does it happen to you? What are your thoughts?
I've struggled with this, honestly. There are people who message me on Facebook who I've never met, but it seems like they are friends with, not just passing friends, but it seems like they're actually friends with people who I'm aware of or who I am friends with. And actually the thing that I've started doing just in the last year is just messaging them and seeing how that goes. Like, oh, hey, it's a student from Berkeley. And he seems to know some people. Like I still know Michael Sweet, who used to run the game music program over there, just recently stepped down. I thought, okay, let's just talk and see how the conversation goes. And sometimes after that conversation, I'll go ahead and add that because it seems like we're cool with talking to each other. I understand what he's bringing to the table. He understands a little bit of my position and how I care to communicate with people on Facebook, and we're all peachy, added to my list, cool. Or maybe not added to my list because that person decides not to return my message and was just waiting for someone to add to his own list without anything else. So I started doing that this last year, but I've actually previously would just totally ignore those things. Okay, I don't know this person. Maybe he's in the game community, the game audio community. I would still ignore him, but I just changed that this last year.
Okay. Yeah, I've felt like I've done the same. It depends on the day. Like initially, I'll be on the fence about it and I'll vacillate, and then and I'll think about it and I'll be like, well, what if it was me, and how would I feel? And then again, like you see mutual friends, and then so what will happen is like I'll just either accept it, and when I do, I'll message them. And because I'm figuring, well, if you want this interaction, then you must want some deeper interaction to say hello or something. But what I've always received is like people just want to friend you, and it seems like it's just more of a status thing. Well, I'm chums with such and such, and he's on my Facebook friend list, and it's like, but you guys don't really talk. You've actually never sent me a message, and so therefore I feel that disconnect that happens. And we were just talking about like we don't have time to email everybody and say what's up to everything. But it's like if you want to be connected with that person, why not take the extra step and send that message? So that's the only thing I guess I've been thinking about. And we're talking about social media with professionalism and how us as game audio professionals use it. And so that's something I actually wanted to like bring to the forefront.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, because I think that previously the way it used to be is that Facebook is kind of your personal private little garden where the only people who get in are the people that you approve.
Right.
And then whatever you say only goes out to those people, right? And Twitter, on the hand, with the open platform where you can follow anybody and anybody can follow you, and everything you say is public. There used to be that line between the two of them, and I think for that reason, when there existed that line, I used to use Facebook purely for that purpose, for like friends, stuff like that, and Twitter purely for professional purposes. But at some stage, probably about 2 or 3 years ago, I noticed that it really started to blur, and Facebook sort of became like this place for people to update sort of their professional endeavors and things like that as well. And then that started to happen as well, like you said, Chase, where people say, you meet them at a convention, you've been talking for an hour, they're a really great person, and you feel you'd like to maintain a connection. But then they say, let's connect on Facebook. And you're thinking to yourself, well, why don't we use Twitter instead? That sort of started to happen more often. And then eventually it got to the point where I realized that, well, basically they're the same now. Like basically, if you're using it for a professional purpose, depending on the country and depending on the industry, it's going to be sort of Facebook as a default platform or Twitter as a default platform. Like, for example, here in Sweden, I live in Sweden now. Last time I was on the show, I lived in Japan, which is really bizarre. Now I live in Sweden. So I'm getting further and further away from Australia. So next time we do, like, I'll be on like Mars or somewhere like that. Anyway, in Sweden, it seems that like Facebook is the default social media platform, and like that's where everything happens, and also for the industry too. That's been a real problem for me because I've actually kind of gone off Facebook. I find it a little hard to stomach these days. I don't know. I just sort of go there and get very depressed when I open up Facebook. Whereas Twitter, I find like extremely useful all the time. And like you said, Chase, Twitter is also much easier to sort of have a quick glance, see what's happening, go through some stuff and get back to work. Whereas Facebook kind of pulls you in and then you get stuck and you end up going through all these sort of shares of clickbait and political stuff. And it's just, Anyway, so I have actually stopped for about 2 years. I haven't opened Facebook. I do use it for Messenger, like messenger.com, which is the best part of Facebook, is the fact that their messaging engine is a completely different website, which is brilliant. But what it's meant is, like, coming to Sweden, I actually ended up missing out on loads of news for the industry here, and especially events, because usually people do them as Facebook events. So I miss out on all of that just because I'm not on that platform anymore. So depending on the country and the industry, our industry, fortunately for me, Twitter is sort of it is a big hub for activity in the game industry, especially outside of Sweden, in Europe. What's my point? I don't know. I think I lost it at leaving Earth for Mars to get further away from Australia.
You're saying that Facebook's use has blurred the distinction between having your circle of friends and your professional circle.
Excellent. Thank you. That's right. Yeah. So it sort of has blurred a lot now. So I think nowadays, Chase, I think probably now if I receive friend requests on Facebook and they're people that I've not met, and it's just kind of like, hey, I want to follow you because whatever. Probably nowadays I'll be more inclined to say, well, this is the way that Facebook is now. You don't have to know somebody to get let into their private Facebook garden.
True. I guess you still have, if you have it set up a certain way, like for Facebook, for me, is it's like this person has a friend request and it could just be in the ether or it could be confirmed, versus like a follow is a follow, right? Like the other thing I wanted to say is, like, I guess if you guys have known that Instagram is the new game audio, game industry hub of things, right? Like if you want to work in game audio, you probably should be on Instagram. And so I don't know, but about you guys, but I was off Instagram, like I was off Twitter for a certain period of time. And then my girlfriend was like, you got to be on Instagram if you want to get your music out there. And I was like, I hate Instagram, and that's more things I have to do and figure out. But then I've seen developers posting more screenshots and more videos. And so now I'm in Instagram. But are you shutting yourself off from how much is too much? And are you shutting yourself off? Whereas, and if you do meet a video, it's like, oh, you're on Instagram. Again, like what you were saying, depending on the industry, is like, how do you connect? Do you need to be on everything to connect with everybody? Or do you just kind of narrow, like focus your points of where you think is going to be most effective?
That's a really tough one. I think all people who are trying to use social media to to promote themselves, all people face that exact dilemma. Like, is it better to sort of specialize on one? I have 10,000 followers on Twitter, but I have 3 on Instagram. Does that lessen my chances than having 5,000 on each? And then Instagram, of course, is famously stubborn about having an easy way to access the stuff on a website. I don't believe you can actually post on Instagram from a website yet, can you?
No.
I think it has to be from your phone. So, I think that's a real dilemma that everybody struggles with. I would probably, I don't know, arguably, maybe it's better to just stick to the one that is, actually, yes, I do have an answer for you. I think probably it's best to stick to the social media platform that you feel most comfortable with updating frequently. So if you're the kind of person who's always got your phone camera out and taking pictures everywhere, and you're always on your phone and you're comfortable with slamming away at apps on your phone and stuff like that, then it's, like, Instagram is a great option. If you're the kind of person who isn't always out taking pictures of stuff, and you prefer sitting at a computer, and you like to have a broad range of stuff that you digest, and you're good at typing. What's the character limit now? Not 240 characters, but whatever.
It's 280.
Anyway, yeah, whatever. And whatever it was. If you're that kind of person, and it's more comfortable to be giving sort of, brief updates in text with some content as well, then maybe Twitter is better for you. I think the most important thing is just to find something that you're able to be consistent and frequent with, and it's really hard because we're all busy people, and especially when you're trying to self-promote, it's like, well, hey world, here's my lunch. Hey world, I've just opened a new project, and I'm sure you care about that. It's like, who cares?
There's a thing, circling back to your point about deciding how to segregate your personal life from your professional life on Facebook, which could also apply to Instagram and Twitter. There's a subtlety that arises in that our professional lives and our personal lives are not that discrete. They're not that separate from one another.
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about the incursion of professionals into your friend circles, as you were both describing, which happens. An enthusiastic acquaintance wants to friend you on Facebook, and you say, fine, you can look at my lunch. But consider the fact that your friends also serve as, or can serve as, a de facto extension of your network, your professional network. Your friends may work in the game industry. Your friends may work in audio. And if they're aware of what you're doing on their day-to-day friends feed, they may recommend you for something, or they may recommend someone to you. And it may be a side effect of your personal take on your professional life. So maybe on your professional Facebook page, you have, I could not be more excited to be working on Skull Exploders 4. But on your personal page, you say something like, oh man, I just got this gig. It's great. I've been working really hard to get back into game music, da-da-da-da-da. And a friend might see that and might never see the official, fancier, slightly more diplomatic phrasing of the news. So you self-curate for both audiences, and sometimes there's this overlap, and friends may lead to professional connections. So it's a big, messy overlap of different social circles across several different media, and there's no clean-cut way to manage everything. There's no systematic approach. It all depends on the nuances of your social network and how your friends and professional contacts overlap, and what media you take to most naturally.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And that's an interesting thing. I think we should also be careful not to generalize the entire realm of social media as if it is the game industry, because the game industry has a very unique and absolutely wonderful characteristic about it that is unique, and that is the line between friend and professional affiliate is very, very murky in the game industry, and that is a fantastic thing. And coming from a background with 2 other industries that are very far away from games, I can tell you that's very, very unique and something that we should absolutely treasure. The fact that, like, for example, you guys, we're all friends. Like, I would count you guys for sure as like personal friends, but then on the same hand, we also kind of work together, and we're also professional affiliates. And this is very normal for the game industry. But for example, if we are accountants, or we're architects, or we are landscape engineers, or like, I don't know, we work in factories or whatever, like the line between these are my buddies for hanging out with in the evenings and the weekends, and these are the people that I work with from 9 to 5, 9 to 6 every day, is much more well defined. So I think that what Mike is mentioning about the the difference between the different audiences that follow us on social media, I think is very, very relevant for our specific industry, but perhaps not relevant for all industries. Being that we're here to talk about game audio, who cares about the rest of the industries?
Their own marketing battles.
Yeah, I think we should have a very strategic segue here into talking some tools and tech. Because what would a game audio hour be without a little bit of tools and tech talk?
Ooh, let's do it.
We're like exactly halfway.
But since we're at the halfway point, this brings up an interesting question: is are we still sponsored by anyone, and do we need to plug anyone?
I'm not sure if we need to plug anyone, but if anyone is interested in us plugging them, you could always go to our Facebook, Game Audio Hour, our Twitter, Game Audio Hour, and shoot us a message. And we're pretty good about responding to those messages, and we can figure out something. So, hey, we're open.
Let's go around the room and let's plug a company, just randomly.
Plug a company. Ooh.
In game audio, or in audio.
Soundspot.
Tell us about Soundspot, Chase.
So I've been using Soundspot for mostly their delay plugin called Nebula, and for the recent project I had shipped the soundtrack for earlier in the year, it came in quite handy. But they've got a massive sale right now, especially I'm looking at this Union Wave synthesizer. It's $129. You guys want to, well, it's 129 pounds. You guys want to guess how much it is right now?
15 bucks.
It's 5.99 pounds.
Oh,
wowzers. So yeah, they've got their plugins are so professional, and so I like the graphic user interface. I like the quality that it produces. I like the stock presets that they have, but it gives so much flexibility and creativity beyond what they give, and it's not overwhelming. It's pretty intuitive, and you're off and you're creating really fast versus other things that kind of are just a little bit clunky and just not very clean and doesn't sound very good. And it's not Black Friday right now, so I'm sorry, I had to shout out Soundspot right now because they've got a couple things I'm looking at. I'm probably going to come under maybe $50 for about 5 things right now, so shout out to them.
Nice. Vince, you're next.
Okay. You know what? Okay, I'm going to shout out Organic Samples. I think I mentioned them way back in the day.
Yes.
They've actually been going through some changes. They used to have their own website, and then I was surprised one day to see that their website went down, the products weren't available for sale, but then they magically are available again on Orchestral Tools website. So if you go to orchestraltools.com and you check out the Organic Samples collection, you will see their stuff. And all of their stuff are these contact instruments, which are really quite good and quite cheap. The thing that I remember was their Majestic horn, and I constantly remember that because I constantly use it. I'll typically do a layered Majestic horn, plus a Spitfire horn, plus a sample modeling horn. And those 3 horns together make a really good 3-horn ensemble. And Majestic horn is by far the cheapest of the bunch at €2, and it is not a Black Friday price. That is just the normal price for this thing. It is a very good thing. They make other things that are almost as cheap, some stuff around that range, some stuff more in the €50 range for their solo voices. But Organic Samples, as part of the latest addition to the Orchestral Tools team, I think they do some cool stuff, and I'm always on the watch for what they do.
Yeah, to get those horns that I used on the demo earlier this year, I had to say, very good for $3. I was very impressed. That's not saying that's not a good. That's hard to come by for samples of that quality.
I'm going to plug Nectar Tech, and that's spelled with a K instead of a C. Makers of fine MIDI controllers. I've got the Impact LX88. There's a successor that's got really ugly colored keys, but is otherwise a fine MIDI controller. I was looking for a MIDI controller that was very flat. It was kind of low to the desk, whereas most MIDI controllers are like these giant, like Harry Potter book-sized affairs. I wanted something that was low just because of the ergonomics of my setup. The reason I'm plugging them is because they provided some really excellent customer service to me this week. When my keyboard started acting funnily, the G above middle C was transmitting MIDI data with a velocity of about 50 above all the other neighboring keys. So if you played a C major scale, as soon as you hit G, it would jump out. And I went through the usual tests to make sure it wasn't a corrupt logic file, or maybe I was just really eager when I was hitting that key. And I narrowed it down to the hardware. Contacted Nectar support, and after they gave me a few tests to make sure I wasn't an idiot, they said, it's probably the circuit board that reads the key controllers. You can bring your keyboard to North Hollywood and we'll fix it for you for free in a few weeks, or I'll just mail you a replacement circuit board for free. How about that? So 2 days later, I've got a replacement circuit board, and I'm going to be able to fix like a 5 or 6 year old keyboard controller for $0. So that is excellent customer service, and I'm giving major props to Nectar for making good products and standing behind them.
That's
nice.
Really cool. I also have that LX88. It's been really good to me, and I'm really glad to know that that company will stand behind it if I ever come across a similar issue that you had. But so far, it's been great to me, and yeah, I love that company too.
I will say as an asterisk here, one advantage to being in LA is that so many manufacturers of music gear or software are here, and the paradigm of having customer service say, come by our office and we'll swap something out for you is actually fairly common. I once had a bum, like a DVD from East West years ago, back when DVDs were used for that purpose, and they said, yeah, just drive by and we'll swap it out for you. And like an hour later, I had a replacement. So that is a nice perk about living in a major music center.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Alex?
Well, you guys are waiting for me to plug Renoise, aren't you? I'm not going to do it. We're going to save that topic of conversation for a little bit later in the show, because it's going to come, it. No, instead, I'm going to plug something a little bit unexpected. I'm going to plug a company called Vember Audio. Ooh. And Vember Audio are the makers of a software synthesizer called Surge. Oh. And you might remember Surge from maybe 5-10 years ago, when it was the thing. I mean, it is like a extremely extraordinarily capable software synthesizer that sounds very good, loads of presets, a huge range of different kinds of synthesis techniques. You've got subtractive, you've got additive, you've got wavetable, loaded with effects as well, in a very attractive and easy to use interface. So what actually happened, I think a bit more than a year and a half ago, Surge had been without update for the longest time, and it was basically sort of dead. So Vember Audio decided to make it open source. Now, if you go to Google or DuckDuckGo or whatever your search engine of choice is and type in Vember Audio Surge, you'll get taken to their open source GitHub page, where you can actually download a frequently updated copy of Surge entirely open source for free. And let me tell you, Surge is really great. I mean, sure, it's not, if you compare it to the sort of the bleeding edge of software synthesizers from other companies that are being developed commercially nowadays, yeah, of course, it's not going to be right up there with the rest of the, the UHEs and the native instruments and all that kind of stuff. However, for a free synthesizer, the amount of presets that you get and the capabilities and also the ease of use, it's unmatched. Like it's extraordinary. And did I mention it's totally free? So Vember Audio, if you would like to sponsor us. But anyway, yeah, no, it's really great. And it's fantastic to see that being open source now, obviously you've got several, very benevolent, generous developers who are contributing to it. So it is actually updated regularly, which is great compared to it basically being sort of dead in the water as it was for the past, for those years when the original developer, Vember Audio, once he stopped working on it. It's really great to have it sort of being kept up to date. So Vember Audio Surge, That would be my my plug.
Is there another synthesizer to which you would compare it tonally?
Probably the original Massive.
What? It's downloaded.
not the new Massive, but the original one, which I've you guys, it's all coming out now. All these old game audio tropes are coming back, but I've never been a massive fan of Native Instruments in general. Pun nicely intended there. So yeah, I mean, in terms of capabilities, ease of use, and basically the end result, what you get at the end of it, how it sounds, I would probably liken it to the original Massive, not the new fancy pants Massive X. Please buy our product because we're syncing Native Instruments. Thank you very much, Massive X. Poor old Native Instruments. Oh boy, that's a topic for another long conversation, isn't it?
Wow, this looks cool. I'm downloading this thing from GitHub right now.
Yeah, it is really, really spectacular. Like the interface itself, it reminds me of like a Commodore Amiga game. Somehow, it's like kind of needlessly complicated and detailed somehow.
Ooh.
I can't wait to dig in.
Okay.
I think Mike is swatting a fly.
My computer is down to 21% power and fading fast, so I have to grab it.
Okay. I thought you were like swatting a fly. It sounded like you were like going at the walls with a fly swatter or something.
Let's just say that happened because it's more exciting than me grabbing a power adapter.
Right. Okay. Anyway, so Vember Audio Surge, check it out.
Yeah. Synths are great. I love synths. I miss synths. Lately, I've been actually messing around with more of my analog synths. So I've got most of my analog synth gear has actually been this, big physical analog synth gear in some racks that are outside this room right now. And it's great. And I love sort of the fine control that I can get out of it. And I was actually thinking a lot about that as I was recording some new stuff and dealing with how crappy 7-bit MIDI CCs are. MIDI is great, but MIDI also really sucks in being so resolution. You've got these continuous controllers for all sorts of stuff. I happen to use my Iwi, which gives me breath control on CC2. I think it's really funny, really telling that way back when they thought, oh, breath control is going to be the real big deal. Right after the mod wheel, bam, CC2. But even though it's labeled differently, it's still the same 7-bit value that is assigned to pretty much anything else in the MIDI world. And I've been really trying to figure out how to actually deal with this with different instruments. So I use my Iwi and I use breath control, but the way that the values ramp for different instruments, whether they be contact instruments or something with a proprietary VST player that someone has made for their set of samples, it can be really tough to deal with, especially dealing with very low values. Shooting out that breath control, you can get really, really light values, really light pressure. But what I find myself outputting in the MIDI world is actually a lot of noise that just is cycling between CC at 0 value, 1 value, 0, 1, 2, 1, 0, 1, 2, which can be really problematic depending on the actual synth that you've got, depending on the contact instrument, depending on the VST. I really like contact instruments because then I can actually go into it, assuming that the developer allows me, and actually change how the CCs actually correlate with the volume of your wave files, with the opening up of filters. And with some of the more closed libraries, maybe it's a contact instrument, but the developer just doesn't allow you to dig into the guts, or it's some other sort of proprietary plugin. I end up finding myself just having to play the thing differently, and I just have to instead change how the breath controller on my iwi is actually shooting values into the instrument, which can be really frustrating. It's because then I have to change it back for all the instruments that I have, which work more or less correctly, or that I actually edit in Contact the right way. And this kind of leads me into something that I remember from digital photography way back almost 20 years ago when I first got into it. Before I actually got a professional audio gig, I was doing some professional photography, and I had to have a digital camera back in the early 2000s. And one of the things that was propagated throughout all the internet when it came to how to use digital cameras versus how to use analog cameras was this thing called expose to the right. So in digital photography, you've got red, green, and blue, each of which have basically 8-bit values associated with them. And noise, when you're in low values, really sucks. The difference between red being 0 and red being 1 is a problematic thing when you're dealing with a digital image, kind of like the issues that I had with my MIDI CC values. And they were dealing with this in digital photography, and the way that they dealt with it is they had to relearn how to make camera images. This idea of, I'm going to overexpose because, I can reconstruct all of that high value stuff, your really bright stuff, and in doing so, I'm going to at least avoid all that potential for noise in really dark situations, because digital sensors are really bad at that. And I was just sort of thinking about that. As I was going through my iwi again, going through my Contact instruments, thinking, do I really want to do this in this way with this new horn that I got, with this new, actually there's a new bassoon that I've just been playing around with, not released yet, but I've just been messing around with the envelopes on that thing. And it's just something that sort of struck me about how here I am dealing with digital music, and digital photography seems to have this whole thing. Hey, let's approach how we make images in a really big, different way. Have you thought much about how you're dealing with continuous controllers? Because I look online a little bit about this, and I see that it seems like it's kind of a solved thing, but I'm not sure it really is. I feel like there are things that can be done, like how CCs are actually represented in CC take lanes in DAWs, and how exactly can we create new interfaces into our instruments on Contact if I'm feeding it with, say, a breath controller versus with a mod wheel versus with a fader versus with aftertouch from my keyboard, et cetera, et cetera. Or is this just me overthinking?
Does anyone know if this is being addressed in MIDI 2, the new spec that's, or how it's being addressed?
I think it is, just by virtue of resolution. Like that is kind of a big thing, and I'm looking forward to that. But I am kind of thinking about this idea of the take lane. Are there any DAWs out there that allow you to change how the values of CCs are actually represented in your piano roll, in your take lanes?
Wow, I would say no, but probably Reaper.
I wish. I'm on Reaper, and I'm not sure how to do that. That seems like a really cool idea, right? What instead of doing it on the instrument, do it in the DAW, where you're either wanting to look at how those values are represented, or you want to draw them in yourself with either a mouse or a pen or a touchscreen, whatever, most of them with the mouse. But still, what if you could change it from linear to something else that would be better? So you don't have this whole thing of, a little bit of literal jitter in my mouse as I'm trying to do stuff that's sort of in that range of values from, say, 0 to 10, doesn't create a noisy sound on the output of my instrument.
You can always... Sorry, go ahead, Mike.
Oh, I was just running with what you were suggesting, that it sounds like you'd like more of a, to make a visual analogy, kind of a zoom on lower values, just so you could look at that equivalent of a noise floor and make fine-tuned changes there. Or we might speculate, maybe as you moved your mouse along the curve, there was some kind of magnifying glass that lets you do more detail-oriented work at wherever on the curve you happen to be looking. You might even think as an analogy to graphics programs where there'll often be another window, which is kind of like a magnifier window. I don't know if what you're looking for is having your attention drawn by default to certain portions of the CC curve. So it's almost like a logarithmic display in reverse, where certain, like the low values get this disproportionately greater, or maybe at the extremes. Maybe you want to see like the topmost values, or it sounds like you may want to have a bespoke solution where you happen to know that like 64 to 65 on velocity is a threshold for triggering a mezzo forte sample versus a forte sample on your favorite instrument. Maybe you want to put a lot of attention to those transitions. That would be cool. I don't know if that's possible.
Yeah.
Are you talking about doing a program change for the CC?
I don't know if it's a program change. I mean, in MIDI parlance, like program change is like totally different.
Okay.
Like it's more like, and I'm actually not even sure what I'm asking. I'm just sort of throwing it out there because I feel like there's something there. You know, I guess part of it is the type of music that I'm writing right now, where I'm not using the full dynamic range from pianissimo to fortissimo, right? And actually, if you look at a lot of instruments that are made these days, it feels like so many of your modern orchestral instruments put a lot of care into forte versus fortissimo versus fortissimo. Maybe they'll put it in a separate patch, or maybe it'll have like a really good velocity layer blending there.
Right.
But so much of the stuff that I'm really writing right now is sort of in that pianissimo to mezzo piano range. And pianissimo to mezzo piano range as sort of like default mapped onto most instruments is going to be on something like, say, 0 to 24 or 0 to 32 on your CCs for expression or whatever the default CC is. And man, 0 to 32 kind of sucks. That's not a whole lot of values there.
Isn't there, in Reaper and Logic and Cubase, they'll have ways to translate, MIDI data? Would there be a way to translate, for example, a range of control change values, the full range, down to a limited range based on, the area of control change values that you're wanting to work with?
Maybe. I think
it seems like something, all of the weird Logic's, what's it called in Logic? It's called the Logic calculator or something. Isn't it like that the window that does all the funny, allows you to change one thing into, is it called the No. What is it called?
Logic editor.
I've never heard of that.
No, what is it?
Logic editor.
No, it's not called Logic calculator. It's the, the funny screen with like the lines that you can draw between the environment.
The transformer, right?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that also, as well as all of Cubase's MIDI transform tools. Reaper, I'm sure, has equivalents. Maybe that could be an option. Find something that can translate like a full range of control changes down into a limited range, just to give you. But then thinking about it, that doesn't really help you, because you're still working with, say, like 24 values. So even if you're seeing 24 values represented as a full range of values, the output is still only going to be 24 anyway. So the only thing that you're gaining is just a larger view. And if that's all you want, then why don't you just make the track huge? Or use a DAW that doesn't have a graphical user interface. And I know a very good one.
Oh no.
If you don't mind typing in numbers, then like something like Renoise actually could help you there, because you're actually just literally seeing numbers. And so that's obviously, no, that's not, I am kind of half joking, because that's probably not what you want when you're trying to work as fast as you can and trying to edit ranges of control changes in numbers, but that would give you ultimate granularity.
Right. No, I get you on that. Like I miss that, having that exactness there. mean, part of it is also the fact that I'm so stuck on this instrument. I am married to this instrument, and I'm sort of trying to compromise other things around it. I want my DAW to be better able to represent this thing.
Wow.
And there's actually some things that they actually have on by default. Like, out of the box, this thing does things in a high resolution mode. So it outputs the breath controller on 2 value NIRPins, so 14-bit values.
Nice. That's amazing. That's cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you have an instrument that can handle that, and most instruments cannot handle that. And actually, it's kind of fun. One of the things that I try to do is really dive into it and make sure that these things work. Embertone made a really great instrument a couple years back. These recorders, they sounded good. They're pretty affordable. The whole range of recorders, but they just did not want to respond properly if you fed it high resolution data at that rate. It's just, I'm throwing so much data into this contact instrument, and it's doing so much stuff with scripting. And if it's not the most efficiently made, and some instruments aren't, just because we've got so much power these days, it's going to just balk at all the MIDI data that's being sent its way and just output crap as opposed to the notes that you want. And thankfully, Embertone is a really good and communicative company, and they responded to the very specific needs that I had and actually gave me a patch as well as propagated it to a further patch down the line. So that's good for them. But, not everyone's a good communicative company like that.
It's amazing. It's kind of what model iwi are you talking about? What year is the model that you are referring to?
This one is just 3 or 4 years ago. When did the iwi 5000 come out?
That's an internet question. Look, everybody's on the internet to find that out.
Hey Google, when did the iwi 5000 come out?
Oh my God.
Hey Siri, when did the Google 5000 come out?
It's 2014. Honestly, I feel kind of silly whenever I say the full name of the instrument. I feel like I'm saying something from a fantasy novel. The first thing I think of is Harry Potter, sort of like, and all the people sort of like fawning over the Nimbus 3000.
We need it. We need it.
Yeah, it's the whole story is fascinating, isn't it? From the point of view of technology, that back in the 80s, the idea, just like you said, let's put breath control right after modulation, but let's limit it to this range of numbers. That'll be fine. That'll be enough. Nobody needs more than that. But the ironic thing is that by mostly it's been fine. For most applications, if you think of the range of electronic music that's been produced since MIDI was standardized to today, in most cases, it works great and it's fine. And it's amazing that MIDI 1.0, it's kind of like the Fender Stratocaster or the Fender Precision Bass, or any of these sort of classic instruments that they're so primitive, but in most cases it's just enough and it's what you need, and it just does the job very well. It's kind of funny that now, what is it, 40, 50 years since the standardization of MIDI?
1980
now,
was when it
almost
came in.
40. Wow.
40 years later, we're working on an update. That's amazing. Can you imagine if Adobe Photoshop was only updated to Photoshop 2.0 40 years later?
Oh, man.
CS3.
40 years, and it's been, by and large, pretty fine. And that's really some kind of tech. Yeah, I mean, that is amazing. Anyway, I think, Vince, probably the directions that I would look would be Reaper, and I think also Cubase, perhaps. Or also one other one is Bitwig might have
Bitwig.
an interesting sort of features for that kind of thing, because I know that they always touted their compatibility with the various sort of extreme end of controllers and stuff like that, and the values that they can put out there. From way back in the early time of Bitwig, they were promoting the fact that Bitwig was compatible with all of that. So fast forward now to 2019, there might be some good solutions for that. Yeah. I've been there wouldn't be a game audio hour if we didn't talk a little bit about the DAW wars, but I'm not going to talk about Renoise, don't worry. I am still using Renoise religiously, of course. I have to. But Cubase, I have to say, Cubase is extremely impressive. Extremely. And I'll tell you why in a simple sentence. Like, normally when you think of legacy software, when you think of software that's this old, like you think of things like Adobe Photoshop that are just like so weighed down with like decades of features. How do you make a program where you have the commercial realities of software development, where you kind of find yourself in the situation of you must offer updates to your software? There must be updates. It must be marching forward. There must be new features. So you do that for like decades. Of course, naturally, you're going to get to a stage where it just becomes really heavy and really hard to use. Sort of basically bloated. I'm looking right at you, Apple Logic. Sorry, Mike. Where you sort of, okay, when you use it, you get, okay, so these are the features that are left in here because the legacy users need them. And these are the features that are put into here recently because they're friendly for the new users who don't have the decades of experience with the software. How do you find that balance? It's really hard. So Steinberg Cubase, I have to say, I've been extremely impressed that it's very, very simple. Somehow I kind of expected that it would be far more complicated and sort of bloated and weighed down by all of the decades of features that Cubase has to keep up with. But it's actually extremely simple. Everything is laid out in a very, very simple way. And it could be because I do have quite a lot of experience using different DAWs, so I was able to just sort of walk in and kind of basically know where things are pretty quickly. And maybe for somebody who's never touched a DAW before, it might be much more intimidating. But everything is just very, ironically, logical. Whereas Apple Logic, I feel, is a bit more of a victim to this issue of, okay, we've got this new design team who are doing all of these cool UX improvements to make it easy to use for newcomers who are stepping up from GarageBand, which is fantastic. But then we've also got all of our legacy users who need their features from decades ago, from like, the old eMagic days. So we've got to kind of have both of these in the one software package. And it's just sort of this weird, a great example is the EXS24 sampler. Like, what the hell is up with that? Look at it. Just look at it. On the other hand,
you're not wrong, but what we can say is that the ancient legacy stuff in Logic can stay hidden if you don't look for it.
Right.
Like the environment. Everyone has hated the environment since the inception of Notator for the Atari ST. But there it is, this ugly, weird, illegible gray on another gray, unreadable mess of digital wires. It's there if you need it. Hopefully you never need it. But if you've got some tinkering that was done in 1995 and you want to open that file, it's still there. But it is all isolated from you nicely. So the situation isn't quite as bad above, at eye level as you may be implying.
Speaking of eye level, I don't know if you happen to have an opinion on this, Chase, do you? Like, as you sip from that nice mug there?
Nah, I got nothing to say.
All right. As the Lone Reaper guy, one thing that I have been tempted by is maybe putting out a bounty on the Reaper forums and saying, hey, I'm interested to see if there's something that can be done in this way. And I'm actually not sure what it is I really want, but maybe there is a programmer out there or a really top-notch scripter that might offer their services on the Reaper forum and say, hey, I've got some money that I want to throw at you, and I've got this idea for how I want to use my iwi over here. I keep on pointing to it. It's not even on the area, but I like using this, and I want to use it better. And maybe I should actually go to someone on the EWE forum, and that would do the trick.
Probably what would happen is you would get a reply from a certain programmer called Justin Frankel. If you know him. Justin Frankel is the original programmer of Winamp, who went on to make a DAW called Reaper.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I'm not the sole Reaper user. I use Reaper entirely for like sound effects. As you know, I mean, it's unbeatable for sound effects production. I have had trouble sort of gelling with it from a creative point of view when it comes to music. And Cubase is just set up great. Like, just there you go, straight into the music. Whereas Reaper for sound effects can't be beat. I mean, but that's one of the great things about Reaper is that you could do that. You could go there to the community and say, here's what I want. And if there's nobody in the Reaper community who can help you out with it, probably within a month or so, it would become an official feature released, done by Justin for you and for everybody else who may have, like, you know, one day an entire year when there's like, oh, I really need to magnify these control values.
Yeah, I second what Alex has said. I would, like I mentioned before on the previous show, just reach out to him. I'm pretty sure I've been hearing great things about the updates just happening for the community. And like I said, I'm Cubase all the way, but I love to hear that the software developers or developer himself has been for the people that support him and reciprocates in that way.
Such an unusual... Yeah, it's interesting, like game audio or audio in general, audio technology has so many of these weird, interesting cases. Like Reaper is an interesting case as well because it does absolutely no marketing. And there's basically three people who work on Reaper, and this sort of, you know, fanatic following of devoted users, and an amazing platform that they've created. So yeah, we're very lucky. We're these days where so many tools are available, affordable prices, excellent functionality, easy to use, easy to get into, and we're sort of starting to specifically for our work as well for game audio. You know, we're starting to come to this time when the distance between your ideas, this sounds like marketing spiel, I know, but the distance between your ideas and actually being able to output something has been shortened so much these days. And that's, you know, it's a fantastic time to be working in audio of any kind, of course, game audio as well.
Yeah, it does sound kind of like marketing there, but that's okay.
Too positive for you guys, or
it's so positive. Oh man,
I like it.
I mean, I'm glad that you could be positive. This is why you need to be on the show more, so you could be like, yes, positive. Yeah. Game audio is awesome and inspiring, and yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's a pleasure to be back. Basically, for the information of for anybody who cares, basically, I've had to be down at the show because I moved to Europe, and obviously the time slot that we used to do the Game Audio Hour, which was always the evenings in California, is that right?
Yeah.
Is kind of like 3 a.m. in the morning here in Europe, and as much as I love and am devoted to the success of the Game Audio Hour, I have my limits. So if I would be curious to know, like, people who've been following the Game Audio Hour for a while, and I'd be curious to know from you whether, like, what kind of format you prefer for the show, and whether, like, a sporadic time, if we do it like this, where sometimes it's in the afternoon in California, sometimes it's in the evening, we change out the lineup, or whether it would be better to have like a consistent time or even whether a weekly thing is something that people mind that much these days, whether it be fine for it to be whenever we want, like whenever we can all afford the time. I think it'd be curious to get some updated feedback. I think we did that quite a few years ago.
Yeah.
It would be interesting to get some updated feedback. So please hit us up on the socials, as they say.
Yep. Social media. We've got it. We're on Facebook. We're on Twitter. Yeah, sorry. Go for it, Mike.
Nah, I lost the momentum. I was going to joke, but please continue with the actual content.
Yes, we are on Facebook, Game Audio Hour. We are on Twitter, Game Audio Hour. Please feel free to send us messages. Someone will respond. And we are definitely receptive and open to anything that you, our wonderful audience, will suggest. Really, I think all of us are interested in keeping this show going and continuing with this momentum. And maybe it takes us in a different direction. I'm not sure what that direction is. Maybe it's just a really small direction, a really small course shift in terms of how we're scheduling our shows. Or maybe it's something larger, but we're going to keep on going forward and keep on doing new shows as the weeks go by. So thank you for sticking with us as we go on this journey. I'm really happy that just over the last 2 weeks, people are still tuning into the show. And hey, Michael, I'm glad to see you again. Yeah, having a consistent time, that is definitely important. I definitely understand that consistency is important. That's part of us here too, where we're going to try to be consistent with putting out this show. So again, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking with us throughout this year. I guess it's really been close to 3 years now, right? That's kind of crazy. No, it's been more than 3 years.
More than that, yeah.
Jeez. Yeah, so we have to keep on going, where we're going to keep going with this legacy. Before we end, first of all, games. Are we playing any cool games lately? There have been a lot of games that have come out in the last week. And I've got to admit, I haven't played Death Stranding yet. Sorry, so I can't tell you anything about that.
But I have.
Is it
but
great?
I can't tell you anything about it, except that it is, I wouldn't say great. I'm not that deep into it, but I think I put out a tweet the other day and I said, like, talk about bearing your own cross. Like, dang, it's like that. It's on that level. It's definitely deep, and do not play it at night before you want to go to bed. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, cool. What about you, Mike?
Nothing new on my end since last week, but I have been starting to peek at reviews just to see if there's anything that's going to be my next big obsession. So more events as details warrant. Other way around. More details as events warrant.
Cool. Alex?
I went from Elite Dangerous to Warframe.
Ooh.
I'm fairly heavily down the hole of Warframe. Warframe is really, it's not usually my jam to play shooter games. Actually, I've never really played. The last shooter game I played was Halo 1. Ages.
Wow.
And so, I tried Wolfenstein, tried Doom. Those were great. Tried Halo. Yeah, okay. Yeah, that'll do. And then basically left that genre behind. And then about 3 or 4 months ago, I thought, no, maybe I should pick it up again just to see what's changed, what's new. Warframe was free, seemed very, very highly reputed. And I started playing it. Thought, wow, like it's really, from a game design point of view, not just how it looks and how it sounds. The game audio is really good too, but
yeah.
All of that aside, just from the design of it, like how they design it so that it's a free-to-play game, but it's fair and ethical, but also has all of these neat little things in there that don't feel like gambling, or they don't feel like you're shopping while you're playing, but sort of urge you to put money into it, but in a very fair, very reasonable way. And there's a lot to learn from it from a game design and a business point of view. So I'm really glad that I started playing it. So very, very impressive and highly recommended.
Wow, that's really cool. I played a little bit of it earlier this year, and I thought, this is pretty neat. And I did get the sense that they were really trying to treat players well, as opposed to rip them off and encourage them to just do things where fear of missing out is the overriding feeling. So that's great, and it's great. Even though I don't currently play the game, it's really cool to see that game and that company have success with pretty large audience over a lot of platforms. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, and over many, many years too.
Yeah.
It's like 6 or 7 years, I think, that Warframe has been going.
Has it been 6? I thought it was more like 3 or 4, but wow.
I thought it was 5 years or so.
Somewhere in
like
there.
4 or
Wow.
5 years. Yeah.
That's an internet question. And by the way, I just checked that the very first Game Audio Hour was indeed 5 years ago.
What?
Jeez.
Yep. Game Audio Hour 1 was dated the, let's have a look. I'm not going to watch it. It was the 28th of January, 2014.
Oh my God.
So our 6th anniversary or 5th is coming up in January.
The 5th is coming up. Oh my.
Coming in.
Okay,
Yeah.
we'll have to do something cool for that.
For sure.
So what day is that?
We should get all the OBs back, like Kyle
Let's get
and
Matt and
Jack and.
That'd be fun. Oh man. Okay, before we say, oh wait, I haven't played any games. No. I did get a review. I did get a review copy of Downton Abbey in the mail, so I'm probably going to watch that tonight. So.
Uh-oh.
Was it that?
Yep, there it is.
Yep, there you go. Yep. Yeah.
I love that
it's
they
that
don't
season.
go through like Academy Award voters, so they just play it safe and mail them out to everyone.
Yep. It's that season. It's not a bad season. Just also means I'm not going to be... Oh, no. Hold on. That's not true. I have been playing games actually every night. I totally forgot about this. Ring Fit Adventure. It's the exercise game with the ring that you squeeze in and out from Nintendo for the Switch.
Oh.
Crap! I saw that yesterday at the Goodwill. I'm gonna go pick that up.
Yeah, it came out a few weeks ago. I only recently got it, and I think it's pretty darn cool. So I need to exercise, and plantar fasciitis means I can't go out running for an hour every day anymore. So, yeah.
Great. That's awesome.
All right. That was our show in way more than an hour, but that's okay. We have a lot of time to make up. So thanks again for watching. Facebook, Twitter, and we'll see you next week. We will announce the time on our social media later on in this week, but regardless, please keep tabs on us. Thank you for sticking with us through thick and thin, and we'll see you later. Bye.